poquito he aprendido a llorar en la vida y también a gozarla bonito. A mi modo he llevado la vida, así pienso seguirla llevando. A mi modo aprendí de mujeres, poco a poco me he ido enseñando, unas veces gozando con ellas y otras veces por ellas llorando. A mi modo que sea mi sepelio, que se sirva tequila y cerveza, que me toque el norteño y la banda, que ninguna cara.
Hey, Doug, I know you don't understand Spanish, but this song's called A Mi Modo, and it's equivalent to Frank Sinatra singing I Did It My Way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so when he's singing, this banda is singing, he's talking about your whole life story, and then at the end, your parents die, but you love them forever. You've met a lot of women, they broke your heart. I mean, it's one of those songs that you got to be smoking a cigar and drinking tequila. You know what I mean?
I'll have to get an English version of it.
Yeah, the English version. But guys, before we get started, let's give a welcome to all these legends that are on. Legendary San Diego PD Team 4 Detective Christopher Kilby. He's here and he's saying that he hopes it's better than yesterday or just as good. We'll see. We'll see. You be the judge. We have our sister all the way from Riverside, Ceci. We're very grateful that you watch us, and we're grateful that on Sunday you were there in your home or wherever you were watching the beautiful service that we had or the beautiful ceremony that we had for Richard Foss. And right now, Bobby will briefly explain what happened. But thank you, Ceci, de todo corazón. And we got our brother, Jim DeJanis, Batman, all the way from Thailand. Thank you, brother. We thank you. And we got the legend, man, Ruben Nava, the chaplain, the man who, after he retired, is back in the barrio, not only saving souls, but helping officers that are currently working, deputies. Thank you, brother Nava. Appreciate you, brother. BJ Juarez, gracias, all the way from Long Beach once again, brother. And we got our brother, man. Hola, gentlemen, Big Roger Demshock, another legend. Y de nada, gracias, Ceci, de todo corazón, de veras. Guys, let's get started. First of all, what are we drinking and what are we smoking? And we'll start off with you, Doug, because I know you always bring these $300, $400 bottles, brother, that make mine look to shame.
This is a Kentucky bourbon, and it's a collaboration of an American. He's a seventh generation master distiller, and then a Japanese chief blender. And it's called Legent.
Wow, okay.
It's finished in wine and then sherry casks. So it's really kind of it's almost a kind of a reddish orange color, kind of caramely. It's really good, smooth, and it's when I got it, it was probably about $60 for that bottle. So I don't know what it is now, but I've been milking it for a while now.
And how would you describe the taste? Is it peaty? Is it strong? Is it?
No, you can almost taste like vanilla and caramel and that kind of. So I don't want to call it sweet, but it's not bitter at all. It doesn't have a lingering aftertaste. It's just really a nice whiskey.
Legend. Okay, you know what I look for? The last one that you had on the football quarterback, dude. Yeah. Nobody here has it, man. So I had ABC order me a bottle. I don't know when it's come in, but they're going to notify me. Terry Bradshaw. Yes, I did order it. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Bobby, what are you drinking and what are you smoking today, brother?
I'm drinking tequila. Nice healthy shot of the Lalo. My go-to tequila right there. It's a nice shot.
It looks huge.
8-ounce glass.
Yeah, and it's that in the Oliva Serie V. I love this one right here.
Great cigar.
Great cigar. It has kind of like a cocoa, other stuff. Has that almost coffee-ish taste hint. You can get a hint. Yeah, that's what I'm having. and just going to enjoy. I'm really looking forward to this show.
Yeah, me too. You know what I'm doing? It looks like a real cigar, but it's a vape cigar because I am a mandilon. My wife will not let me smoke cigars like yours does, Bobby. So I fake it here to make it. But you know what? Hey, you know what? It looks like a real cigar. It tastes not like a real cigar, but it is what it is. You know, you do what you have to do. Hector Hoyt, welcome, brother. Thank you. Another legend, San Diego PD. And I'm drinking Herradura Legend Tequila. And it's actually, you know what? It's not that expensive. It's a very good tequila. I highly recommend it. It has a creamy taste to it and highly recommend it. With that said, gentlemen, salud. As we start our new show. Here we go. Salud. Salud. Bobby, before we get started, I know we have a lot of stuff to cover. We got Ceci drinking agua. We got Big Joe. Saludes from Salinas. Bienvenido, brother. And tell us, brief everybody on what happened this Sunday, how beautiful the event was, and literally how well we were there. That cloud came, the rain, and then all of a sudden it got hotter than hell and we had to run. Tell us about it, brother.
It was every year I go out there. I try to, you know, if I'm in country, I go out. Nice. I go out to Tucson and pay respect to our brother. Mm-hmm. And I go down there, and every year I've been there, it's been like really hot. And I thought it was a blessing, a true blessing to show up down there. And the clouds showed up. It was humid for us, you know, not Miami, not Tampa humid, but it was humid. And then the rain started. A little sprinkle kind of cooled us off. I mean, we were waiting for Bubba to show up. I think I lit 3 cigars. I had 2 of them. I was
before I got there, Bobby. Wow.
No. When we got there, I think by the time we left, I had left 3 cigars down on the gravestone because I had 2 while we were out there, and I was a little buzzed because I was power smoking it. So anyway, it was good. Bubba, Richard's brother showed up. Richard's brother has played in Latin jazz, Cuban groups. He used to travel a lot. He's had some lessons from some of the Cuban conguero masters, and we didn't get to post it live. Maybe we'll post it, the video I sent you, where we actually him. And he was he's a santero. It's a Cuban santero. Practices not actually the religion, but the customs of a Cuban santero, and that's what he was doing. He was singing in Spanish and in language that the Yoruba culture uses out of Western Africa. It was really cool. So it was an excellent outing, and it'll get better next year. Con el favor de Dios.
Con el favor de Dios. It was a beautiful event, and you know what? He's missing a leg, Doug. So he didn't have his prostheses on, but he had his leg showing, and he doesn't have a spinal cord, so it's all made out of metal. And this guy was under a lot of pain. And when they got him out of his vehicle, they put him in a wheelchair, you could tell that he was under excruciating pain. That's Bubba, Richard's brother. Okay. He's probably 60, but he looks, well, due respect, a little older. And he was under a lot, but he went out there. And like I said, when our camera went out, because we were video recording, it was so hot that it actually burned our phone, that so hot that we couldn't record anymore. But he sang that song that Bobby said. And we were sweating, but the man was singing from the bottom of his heart. It was a beautiful event. And next year we're going to do it again, but we're going to have some big surprises coming. But guys, with that said, let's get started. Today's show is it's going to be a very interesting show. Carlos Chacon was supposed to be here. He's going to be here on the 24th, and he's going to talk about a murder that they were one of the many murders, as you could see, Doug and Bobby, that we read, that he was never prosecuted on. But we're hoping that after he gives the synopsis of that murder, that the San Diego Sheriff's Cold Case team will pick up the case. But that's all I'm going to say. He's going to talk specifically about one murder. He'll be here on the 24th. But today, Doug, you've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of people about these cases. It's all yours, brother. And as we get started, I'm going to put the picture of Ronnie Ayala. That's who we'll be talking about. It's all yours, Doug.
Okay. Well, as a disclaimer, first of all, I'm not a prison gang expert, and specifically Mexican Mafia. I understand the basics of the group and how they affect street gangs out in the field, but I don't know all the members. I'm not one of those guys. However, I did talk to quite a few people that did investigations, at least from San Diego PD, detectives from there that I've worked with in the past, and the Sheriff's Department in San Diego. So first, I want to give a kind of a shout out to the Police and Fire publications, because if you ever subscribe to them, they've got some really good stuff. But he did a nice background on Ronnie all the way up to the point where he was tried and convicted and sentenced to death on the execution murders in San Diego. So if you want more of a background, also check them out, because I'm not going to talk too much about it right here. I'm going to talk afterwards what's happened while he was in prison. But I also want to say that while he was in prison previously, before the murder, he'd been there quite a few times. He was involved in many assaults throughout the state penitentiary system. And he learned the politics really fast. And he had a propensity for violence. So he really made a name for himself within the Mexican Mafia and other groups. And he was involved in multiple assaults. I mean, he would do them right in front of the guards. And he was involved in many stabbings, many brawls out in the yard. And each time they would do the investigation, and they recovered the weapons that he used. But each time that CDC would do the investigations, nothing was forwarded for prosecution. And I kind of understand why. You've got issues with victims and witnesses and such. But they closed the cases basically as being what they called a silent beef between the inmates. And then they would transfer them to another institution, or they would put them in ADSEG or something. But there was no accountability for his actions. So in my mind, that just emboldened him more to be even more violent within the institutions. And he got a pretty good reputation inside those institutions.
And you know what, Doug? I was talking to Devin Hawks, and as well as Bobby, you were talking to him, and I was asking him, what documentation do they have when he became a Mexican Mafia member? And he didn't know the exact date or where, but talking to other individuals that were around at that time, they believe it was maybe sometime in 78, 79 at San Quentin prison, where somebody raised their hand and he became a Mexican Mafia member. And then watching that episode by Police and Fire by Johnny Chingas,
yes,
I'll tell you, after watching that, that's why I sent it to you guys right away. It's unbelievable what you're saying. From 78 to 85, when he was sentenced to death row, he was involved. I mean, the guy's like a serial killer, literally.
Yeah,
and he got away with it. And, I'm just reiterating what you're saying, but this guy literally is like a serial killer. But yeah, about 78, 79 is when he became a member, him and his brother, the Mexican Mafia.
Right. And his brother's kind of, I get the idea that maybe he's the more outspoken of the two.
Yeah.
He's like the figurehead of the two, but he and his brother work together. I mean, they do a lot of stuff together. But I think Ronnie is more the one that's out in front of it all more than his brother is.
Yeah.
That's the impression I'm getting. But
and you know what, Doug? I always compared him whenever I would talk about them, I would always say they were like Sonny Corleone and Michael Corleone.
Yes.
Yes. Ronnie was that violent individual, outspoken, and Hector was always that introvert, that quiet guy, but the danger. They're both dangerous.
Yeah.
But quiet guy compared to Ronnie. Yeah. So you're absolutely right.
Ronnie seems more impulsive.
Yes.
And if you read if anybody has a chance to go and investigate and look into that case that sent him to death row, where they executed those gentlemen at the auto body shop in San Diego. I mean, it was pretty calculated on how they did that. And but anyways, that's how he ended up on death row. So after being sentenced to death row, of course, he was going through all his appeals and they were getting denied. and that's where he's going to be staying forever. Well, now we'll talk about it later, what's happening on death row, but his sentence, he's not going to get out of prison. So the first case I could find where he was involved while he was in custody, directing actions outside of the institutions, was a 3-year-long case that started in East County, San Diego, by the East County Gang Task Force. And they started the investigation, and that task force is made up of deputy sheriffs, detectives, district attorneys, and their investigators. La Mesa PD, El Cajon PD, all the kind of the East County agencies make up that task force. And they started this investigation, and it started to grow. They included the FBI task force, which is the Violent Crimes Task Force, because there's a lot of money. I think we've talked about this in the past. When you can bring in federal agencies, then you have more opportunity to do more in-depth investigations because you've got the funding. Plus, now you've got more personnel to work these cases. So it was a 3-year case that they worked, and it was called Operation Imero. And it ended up with a nickname at the end of Operation Death Row Incorporated. And I think that came about from the press, because they started putting that in quotes because of the individuals that were involved in this case. But it was, like I said, it was a 3-year investigation. And what they learned is that 2 major figures within the Mexican Mafia, one was in federal custody and one was in state custody. The federal player was Bat Marquez. He was involved in the investigation. And then the state player and the state institutions was Ronnie Ayala. And what they learned during this investigation was that these 2 guys were orchestrating criminal activity on behalf of the Mexican Mafia and behalf of themselves outside the institutions amongst the Serrano street gangs in the San Diego County area. They were involved in, this investigation involved like thousands of recorded conversations. So they were using cell phones, they were doing emails, they were doing all kinds of stuff, which you would think would be kind of crazy because one guy's on death row. How has he got access to this stuff? But, we all know that stuff gets smuggled in, but he had no problem being recorded. And I'm sure I haven't listened to those recordings, but my guess is that they had some inclination that maybe they were being listened to because they're not dumb. But they know they're kind of insulated while they're especially Ronnie, because he's in custody, he's on death row. So what's going to happen to him? What are they going to do to him what more can they do to him that they've already done? But so they had all these recorded conversations, they had written communications, the kites that were going back and forth. They were able to get a lot of stuff. And during this investigation, they included the SSU guys from the prison systems, because they obviously they wanted the prisoners to know what was going on in the investigation, and so that they could react when they were going to do the takedown, so they could toss cells and they could do their own investigation on the inside to corroborate the information that they were getting during the investigation. But they ended up serving just a ton of search warrants on the outside. I think they identified 19 people at that point that they were going to indict. And those guys all had prior criminal convictions. 10 of them were identified as mafia members or really close associates, because as we know, they utilize other people within their, the criminal activity outside the penitentiary. So, some of the guys they use are not gang members. Some of them are not mafia members. They may be a gang member, but they're not a mafia member, but they're a Serrano. And the women too. They use a lot of women in their operations because it's easy for them to get into places that males can't, and it's just different for women when they're committing these crimes. So they ended up. Go ahead.
Hey, Doug, it's unbelievable. And Bobby, I think you could attest to this. You worked investigations and you went to a lot of major prisons in Florence and other prisons. This guy is probably San Quentin Death Row is probably one of the most secure prisons, I would say, in the world. Yeah. But yet this guy has a cell phone in his cell. And I've talked to some of his family members, and they have told me that they would receive 1 to 2 phone calls a week from his cell. I mean, nobody's supposed to have cell phones inside a state prison, not even the correctional officers. But yet this guy, I mean, the balls of this guy. And then you talk about Bat Marquez. That's another one. During this time of this investigation, he was doing, I believe, federal time at MCC, and him, once again, another one with cell phones. And then from there, he got transferred to Miami to a very secluded prison from there. But now he's an ADX in Colorado. I guarantee you he doesn't have a cell phone. I guarantee you. But yet these two guys have cell phones and they're ordering hits, like you were saying. Yeah,
they're ordering hits. They're ordering kidnappings and extortion rings. They're doing all kinds of stuff because they're believing, and they know that their outside contacts are making money, but not enough is coming back to the big homies in the institutions. Yeah. So they're out there making sure that happens, and they've got a lot of people that are sharing this information with them. So, I mean, these guys. So on this case, these guys got charged with. I mean, not everybody got charged with the same charges, but it included things of like conspiracy to commit torture. So they've got these guys talking about how you're going to torture people in order to get them either to give up information, give up how they're doing their business, or give up why aren't they paying the money right. Possession of drugs for sale. They're talking about not only distribution out on the streets, but how are they going to get it inside the institutions so they can distribute it to the other inmates and even in the county jails, much less the state institutions. They are smuggling dope into every institution in the state of California.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
They're talking about arson. I guess there was a couple of guys that were doing conspiracy to commit arson. Just you name it, they were doing it. Doug,
I think Bobby has something. Go ahead, Bobby.
With all these criminals that are master manipulators, whether they're getting jail prison personnel, trustees, other inmates, family members, defense attorneys, paralegals, they know how to manipulate people, and that's how they start getting all this contraband in, and it's just part of their operation. They know they have nothing but time, and they work on people, and they'll spot, like, say, some young Chicano, some young Mexican jail person, and they'll start, being really nice to him. Orale, we're the same, we're the raza, and everything else. They work on people. We saw it in Arizona. We see it everywhere. But I think no matter what type of criminal, you worked overseas, and in overseas, the criminals overseas do the same thing. Master manipulators. And if you're locked up, you have plenty of time to work on these people.
And these guys are all smart guys. These are really smart guys. You would think that if they put it towards a legitimate, they'd be. I don't know if they'd be happier, because I don't know if they equate that with being happy out of custody. Because after a while, I think they're just institutionalized. But they would be very successful business people if they applied it in that manner. But they haven't. But they're super smart guys. So what had happened after these people were being indicted and everything else, the Department of Corrections security threat group, they were part of the investigation with SSU, and they simultaneously, when those search warrants were being done, they went and did a bunch of prison cell searches of the people that were caught up in this investigation. 39 cells. They did. So they were able to tie 39 cells, 39 different people within the institutions to this investigation. That's how nutty it was. And they were able to, they confiscated 23 cell phones,
Wow. In a prison.
In the prisons.
Wow.
And all level 4, probably, without a doubt, level 4 prisons. Yeah.
2 SIM cards, meth, heroin, and what the big thing was the documents pertaining to the Mexican Mafia business.
Mhm.
And what that did is that opened up more investigations. And I could run down those rabbit holes, but it would, you'd be here for a week talking about all those cases. And then of course, out in the field, they recovered a bunch of firearms and everything else. So that was like one of the first cases I can find that he was directly involved in. And I'm sure there's many more throughout the state that I just don't have access to.
And Doug, a guy like that, he's doing life without parole. He's supposed to be dead by now.
Right.
I mean, these murders occurred over 30 years ago, back in '84.
Right.
The new life triple homicide. And he's been involved. I'm going to talk about a murder that he was involved while in death row, without a doubt. And how much time do they give him? I mean, what do they do to him? They probably found him guilty for conspiracy, kidnapping, murder for hire, etc. What do they do to him?
They don't even charge him.
Really?
They don't charge him. And here's the reason why. So, and I asked about this, and this is what I was told by the lead investigator, the sheriff deputy that I talked to, told me about this specific case. I asked if these guys were charged. He goes, no. And the reason why the DA's office chose not to is multiple, and I understand it. One is you're not going to get any more punishment out of the guy. He's already on death row. He's never going to get out, whether he's executed or not. He's never getting out of prison. So why spend the taxpayers' money to do that? Secondly, the security risk to bring him out of prison and bring him down to a local jail for trial. And then you would expose him more to local politics in the jail. And he's going to get, I don't want to say that local jails are more susceptible to smuggling stuff, but I think the amount of people that are coming and going, and custody-wise, coming and going out of local jails is much higher. So I would believe that you would have a higher chance of something getting smuggled into a local jail than you would in a prison. Does that make sense? You got so many people being booked and released by all these county agencies that, to have one guy get something in there, I think is a higher probability than you would if you were in a state institution. Because, usually that's coming in through mail and things of that nature.
So Doug, everybody else got prosecuted, but except him because he's in death row.
He's on death row, so
he has an immunity card and he could do whatever he wants, but they will never prosecute him because he's in death row. But Bobby, I think you're going to be talking about another one. Well, actually, this one wasn't in death row. But wow, that's interesting to hear this. Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're adding on to his invincibility, right? Because all the other times he was in prison, nothing happened to him there either. He was put in ADSEG maybe for all those assaults, but what's the worst thing they can do to him now? He's already on death row.
Yeah.
So there's nothing else they can do to him. So he acts with impunity. And the second case I found was, I think it culminated in December of 2022. And I don't remember what it was called. I don't know if it was an operation or if it was just a short and sweet type of investigation. It wasn't long like the first one was, and they didn't have the numbers. But what had happened is that there was some officers and detectives who were investigating complaints of a possible crime den house in Encanto in Southeast San Diego. And so they started working it. And I believe that they got the Violent Crimes Task Force involved again because of once they started getting into it, they realized the magnitude of some of the individuals that were involved. And what it was a house that they believed was involved in dope and, hiding out people and such. So they got enough information to get a search warrant for the place. And they hit the place and they ended up arresting 6 individuals. And what they found is basically it was a I don't know if it was a safe house, but it was we'll just call it a crime den, but it was being utilized by the Mexican Mafia. So local gang members and other associates were using that place as kind of a base of criminal operation. And then they recovered just a bunch of weapons and ammunition, drugs and cash, and more paperwork. But what they also found and learned during the investigation was that was a place that they would bring people to. They would kidnap people and bring them there, and they would torture them to get information or to find out, why aren't they paying what they're supposed to be paying, or just to hold people for ransom. So it was one of those kinds of places. And there again, the guy that was running the show was Ronnie Ayala. He was the one directing all these things to happen at this little house in Encanto. So it's the same kind of thing. So they prosecuted these folks, and same thing. Ronnie was never charged because of the same reasons. So he is orchestrating, and his brother orchestrating all this activity, at least in San Diego County that I know of, and there's no repercussions for what he's doing.
So Doug, once again, he's orchestrating this. On the first one, they recovered one of his cell phones. So now, 2 years later, there's another operation where he's basically ordering kidnappings, tortures, and once again, with the cell phone from San Quentin State Prison, Death Row.
Correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Bobby?
We mentioned earlier, I was looking up, doing a little research on Gabriel Sleepy Huerta, and it's the same thing. I start digging into his background, and I saw, just numerous acts of violence, killing people, and going to the system. And once, I believe, didn't Governor Newsom, did he commute all the death penalties, or did he just say he's not going to utilize the death penalty?
He's not going to utilize. He's not going to utilize. Yes.
And we used to joke when I worked gangs, and we would have some of these career criminals that were repeat offenders coming and going. We said it's like as if they have a homicide diversion program. Do some clean up some graffiti, and we'll give you your gun back. Just don't do it anymore. And with Gabriel Huerta, there was one where some guy disrespected him, and he got a shotgun, went over and just killed him with a shotgun. Shotgun blasted point blank, and he did like 4 years and 9 months, and he was paroled again. And what happens is a lot of these policies that release these people, like, hey, let's give them another chance. Let's help these people. Well, and I always say this: the people who make these ridiculous decisions, many of them live in gated communities. They don't live in the communities that these people live in, that the lower income people have to live in, and they're not the ones that suffer the consequences. It's regular people that are stuck in some of these barrios have to live with those consequences from these elitists that make these absurd decisions and releasing literally animals. They're just mass murderers that are going back out to recommit, and then go back into prison.
So Doug, so what happened? So now they don't file charges on him, but yet they file charges on everybody else for torture, for kidnapping. They're in Encanto, San Diego. Encanto, for those of you who don't know San Diego, Encanto is literally, you got downtown San Diego, you got, if you just go east on downtown San Diego by Euclid, that immediate area, by Lincoln High School, that's Encanto, the Vals, Barrio Encanto Locos. So I know exactly where that's at, where the four corners of death are.
So now we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit on cases I could find, and we're going to go to earlier this year in January. There was a case that the Violent Crimes Task Force again did, and for those that don't know, but the Violent Crimes Task Force is an FBI task force. They're the host agency, but just about every agency in the county is involved. So there's detectives from the Sheriff's Department, San Diego PD, Escondido, Carlsbad, everybody, Chula Vista, National. Everybody's got a representative down there that work these more organized type cases. And there's I think there's like a gang side, and then there's a a bank robbery side. So there's different sides to the Violent Crimes Task Force, as I understand it. I could be wrong, but that's how I understand it. But on the gang side, they utilize a lot of electronic surveillance techniques and things of that nature. And they have a lot of informants, and they have people to just give them information. So this next case that came to an end in 2024 involved about 7 people. But most interestingly, 2 of them are women. And both of them were associated with the street gang in East San Diego called ESD, East San Diego, which is a Hispanic gang out there. But the one gal, and I don't know if I want to say her name, but you can look it up if it's on the news. I don't want to say any names if I don't have to.
No.
But the one gal is actually was identified as the facilitator and the secretary for the Mexican Mafia. So she was tasked by high-ranking members, specifically Ronnie Ayala, to communicate on their behalf, to collect and launder money, handle drug transactions, and basically direct street operations on the mafia's behalf. So they're utilizing a woman to tell other members of the mafia and other Serrano gang members, this is what the fellows want in the prisons. This is what they want to have done. So, most people don't equate this organization with having women in that kind of a position, but she was high. She was high in it. So, she was indicted for all kinds of things. And basically, again, Ronnie walks on this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But interestingly enough, during this investigation, she learns, this woman learns of another mafia member that's from Southeast San Diego, and I'm not going to say his name either, because I haven't verified a name, but I know this to be true. All I have is a nickname, and haven't been able to verify which person this nickname is, so I don't want to say a name.
We'll have it by the next episode when Chacon is here, the 24th. We'll have his picture up. We'll talk about him.
Yeah, we'll talk about him then.
Give us more time. Yes. Yeah.
But this guy was working. He was working the border. So he had hooked up with a guy that he's not a gang member. He's not a member of the mafia. He's got a lot of contacts in Mexico. But these 2 guys were involved in human trafficking. They were bringing. They call it the pollo business. But that's what they call illegals coming back and forth were pollos. So they were involved in smuggling people across the border. And I'm sure there was drugs coming across the same ways. And they had tunnels and such that they were doing this through. So she heard about this operation. Well, this particular member who was involved, he was working under Bat Marquez. So he was paying his duties to Bat Marquez, who was in federal custody. So this female, the secretary, got a hold of Ayala, communicated with him and said, hey, look, so-and-so is down here and he's making bank smuggling across the border. But
and Doug, let me reiterate once again, he's in death row. And right now we're gonna talk that he's no longer in death row, but when this happened, he was again in death row for the past 30 years, but this is 8 months ago or 6 months ago, and in death row, he's receiving a phone call giving orders. Still, that is unbelievable in our death row that he has a cell phone. So she's communicating with him before he moved on. We'll talk about that, but continue. I'm sorry, but I'm just.
Okay. So she tells him about how this guy's working the smuggling deal, but he's working under Bat Marquez. Well, Ronnie and his brother, they're not having that, because in their minds this is their area. Southern California, San Diego is theirs.
Yeah.
So communication is sent back through this gal to this other member that's out doing this, that he needs to get in contact with Ronnie. So he does. He gets in contact with Ronnie, and Ronnie asks him about his operation, and this guy's like, well, Yeah, I've been doing it a while now, but I pay homage to Bat. Mm-hmm. I give him monies. I'm working for Marquez. And Ronnie says, no, you're not. That's my territory. That's not Marquez's territory. You're now working for me, and you will work for me. Well, this guy was torn because he's working for Bat, but he understands the politics of the EME. So he can't tell this guy, I'm not giving you, I'm not working for you. And then Ayala decides that this member needs to whack his partner. He needs to kill his partner so that they don't have to share any money with somebody that's outside the family, basically. Well, now he's got a real problem with that because he's kind of friendly with this guy, and he's got a good working relationship with this guy because he's got all the contacts in Mexico. So he kind of placates Ayala. He talks to the guy and says, hey, look, we got to quit. We got to stop our operation because I got ordered to kill you. And the guy can't understand why. He goes, why would you kill me? I'm the one I got all the information. I'm making you guys a ton of money. Why would you kill me? And the guy tells him, well, because I'm under orders, but I respect you too much. So let's just quit doing this. Well, the guy can't quit because he's got bosses also in Mexico. So he contacts Ayala. The guy doesn't, the Mexican Mafia guy that he's working with doesn't realize that he's contacting Ayala.
So this goes.
Yeah. So he contacts Ayala and says, hey, why do you want to whack me? I'm making you guys a ton of money. Well, shit hits the fan basically, because now Ayala's pissed off at the EME member, because not only did he not do what he was ordered to do, but he shared mafia business with somebody who's not in the mafia. That is taboo. So what had happened was he was being investigated by also the Violent Crimes Task Force. So when the investigators intercepted these calls, they immediately went to him and said, dude, Ayala just put a green light on you. He actually put a green light on another member because he had exposed the mafia's business to somebody who wasn't in the mafia, and he didn't comply with the orders of Ayala, even though the guy told him, I'm already working for Marquez. So I don't know what the relationship is between Ayala and Bat Marquez. I don't understand why it's different, but it is evidently. So the investigators actually played, because they recorded these, under their surveillance stuff. They had all these recordings and they had all these kites and stuff where this green light was made on this guy. So they ended up arresting the guy for the case that they were working on. And he's currently doing federal time, but there's a green light on him based on that. And that all came from the gal that was working as the secretary. So they're very, very organized.
Hey, Doug, before we continue, tell us about this right here. You were talking about it. I don't know if it was a correctional person at Death Row or somebody told you about this. Can you share this? This is very interesting about the serial killers and Ronnie Ayala.
Yeah, so this guy, Edward Patrick Morgan, was sentenced to death. He's on death row. He's from Orange County. He's a white guy from Orange County, but he's a serial. The picture in the center and the two pictures to the right is who I'm talking about, Edward Patrick Morgan. But he is a serial rapist. And in the first case, he tortured two 16-year-old girls when he was young. He got some time and got out, and he just continued on doing these crimes. And I think it was in 94. His first cases were in the 80s. So this is how long this guy's been doing cases. In 94, he had a habit of torturing these women. In 94, he got a young lady and he tortured her and he handcuffed her to a tree and he basically sexually assaulted her. He mutilated her body, and it was horrible. The descriptions I've heard and I've read, it was just a horrible scene. And What he didn't realize was that there was a security camera that was pointed in the direction that he had committed these crimes. So they got him on video committing these crimes. And it's a horrid case. So he was convicted of the crimes and he was sent to prison, death row. Well, for whatever reason, Ayala gave him protection. And he actually, and I can't think of I can't think of the term now off the top of my head, but it's the program. They call it the program, I guess, where everybody who's a Cigano that's in custody, and if there's a program, you get together, they're very regimented. Everybody does their exercises in the morning. It's like boot camp in the morning, right? You do your 113 burpees, you eat together, you take care of each other, you give each other the love that you need. And that's what it was described as on death row. Well, for whatever.
Hey, Doug, real quick, I'll just explain it. It's called Ayala, and the whites, the Aryan Brotherhood of the whites, the ones that they accept, they have their own yard. The blacks have their own yard. Black guerrilla family, Mexican Mafia, the Norteños, even though they're in death row, but they have their own little secluded areas.
Okay.
Nobody goes only. I mean, like, you will never see a white in a Chicano environment. You will never see a black in the white environment, vice versa. So even in death row, they have their own they're called dog kennels, little kennels, where only EME members or sureños or people that are in good standing will be doing exercise or walking the little dog courtyard. So that's what you're talking about. The programs, the dog kennels, it's their little area. So that's what you're talking about. So
this guy is in their area. He's under their protection.
The Mexican Mafia. So he's exercising with the EME.
Exercising with the Mexican Mafia.
Yeah.
And and we all know what happens to guys that commit these types of crimes in the institutions. They're targeted. They're killed. They're assaulted. Everything else.
Even in death row, they're still targeted and assaulted.
They're still targeted. So my understanding is it's causing a huge rift within the institutions because no one understands why Ayala would give this guy his protection. So much to the fact that the white inmates have approached him and said, "What are you doing? He's ours to take care of. Why are you protecting him?" But with the other Sureños and any other mafia members that may be on death row, they don't question Ayala because they know if they question him, he's going to have them whacked because he's the guy. So it's causing a lot of rift because in their minds, it's a morality issue. We don't protect people like that. And why are we protecting this guy? So I think, that's kind of like the last thing that I could find that's current, what's going on right now. And if you want really good details on it, there's a guy out there, and he's really good. He talks about a lot of stuff that's happening in the institutions and out in the street. It's called Renegade Media, Tales from the Hood. He's really easy to listen to. He's got some music, rap music that he does, but he gives a real good breakdown on what's going on with that. And no one seems to understand what's going on with that.
Well, you know what, Doug? I don't think anybody knows about this right here. I think you bringing it out, I think only the guards or the correctional officers that are working San Quentin know this, and I don't even think other EME members know about this. But let me give you a little bit of history about Ronnie. For whatever reason, they say that birds of the same feather flock together. He has like this, not fascination, but he uses people. The reason why he probably has Edward Patrick Morgan is because he's probably bringing in heroin, because Ronnie's a heroin addict. Him and his brother, they're stone heroin addicts. So there's no doubt that this guy's bringing in somebody, his boyfriend, girlfriend, or somebody was bringing in heroin. So that's why he adopted him. But when he was in the county jail, and this is Roger Demshaw can confirm this, and others that were working the county jail when he was fighting the triple homicide of the New Life place in San Diego, the triple homicide, he once again befriended serial killer David Lucas. And they weren't in the same cell, but they were sharing cells together, and they were both dealing dope David Lucas was bringing heroin to him, and he offered David Lucas, a serial killer who killed women, who choked women, raped women, protection. And that's to show you that these guys, and Bobby, I think you could attest to this, they have all these rules that they expect everybody to follow, but yet these guys should have been dead. In any prison, these guys, even in death row, should have been dead. The serial killer, rape women, kill children, they should be dead. But yet Ronnie is willing to throw his power and his name out for these serial killers because of heroin, because of his power. But it's funny that in 84, he had a serial killer that he befriended, and today he has a serial killer that he befriends. That's very interesting. Bobby, you have anything to say about that? These are facts.
Yeah. It's just when you look at some of these people, like what you say, the double standards that they have, but he can get a benefit from overlooking his own standards that he believes everybody else should abide by. That's the first thing that came to my mind. He has to be getting something in return, and dope generate money. I'm guessing it's probably dope, because what are they going to need the money for?
But it doesn't sound like it's going over well with the other members and the other Sereños, because it's like, at some, you got to draw a line in the sand at some point, but who's going to confront him about it? Because he wields so much influence and power. Who's going to confront that? And maybe we can talk about that later.
No, we're going to talk about it right now. We're going to jump in. Who's going to confront him? What is going on now? Well, since then, about a month and a half ago, Ronnie Ayala was finally him. And I don't know if those of you that keep up with the news in California, they completely got rid of death row. There's no more death row in California. They had, let's say, 800 inmates in death row, and I'm just throwing a number out. Out of the 800 inmates, I believe there's only maybe 5 or 10, if that, in death row. Everybody else has been released to other state prisons. And when they got released, Bobby, these guys weren't released to the SHU, Security Housing Unit. They weren't released to the hole. They were released. These are killers. They were released to the main line. And right now, I believe 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, Ronnie was, during the shuffle, was released to Centinela State Prison. And I'm showing a picture of Centinela State Prison. The reason why, because as you could see, Centinela State Prison is literally in the middle of the desert. You don't see any mountains here. Maybe the mountains might be about 20 miles away, but there's no roads, one road in, one road out, no houses. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere. So Ronnie Ayala now is in Centinela State Prison. And when he gets there, well, every prison has a llavero, and not only has a llavero, but they have a Mexican Mafia member that is running the prison. And when he gets there, you got Gabriel Sleepy Huerta. Gabriel Sleepy Huerta committed his first murder back in, the guy's my age, he's 64 years old. And he committed, I know I look older than him, but we're the same age. But he committed his first murder, the one you're talking about, Bobby, because a guy disrespected him. He blew him away with a shotgun. And after that, he committed other murders. He finally went to prison for life. He never went to death row, went to prison for life. And there in prison, he committed several murders. One of the biggest murders that he committed, Doug, was on May 16th, 1988, at Tehachapi State Prison. This guy right here, by the name of Nico Velasquez, he was a hardcore Mexican Mafia member. And you know, Bobby, Nico was one of the, I think the only one, or the first or only, that wasn't Mexican. He was Puerto Rican. Oh. And Nico, here you have a picture with him in San Quentin. You got Mundo, you got Topo Peters, you got a bunch of guys here, but Mundo's in this picture. And Nico is in this picture in San Quentin, I believe in the early or mid 70s. And here's Nico. So Nico all of a sudden tells the fellas on the yard there at Tehachapi, this is in May, hey guys, I became a Christian. I gave my life to the Lord. Let me tell you, God loves you. And he started preaching to all the inmates. So what happened was the EME took a vote and they said, hey, we got to take him out. We got to kill him. And what happened, Nico needed a cellmate because his cellmate had left. So lo and behold, Sleepy Huerta, another guy by the name of Frisbee, was going to be a cellmate, but this guy was a killer. So Nico says, no, I don't want Frisbee, but I'll take Sleepy Huerta. So Sleepy Huerta goes in pretending like he wants to know the scriptures, know about the Lord. So what he does, and this is from a lot of great sources, this is exactly how this murder happened. One day, he had the order, Bobby, to kill this guy because he was a Christian. He was no longer wanted to be a part of the EME, and him and Roy Boy, or I'll talk about him right now, Roy Ball, Kilroy, started bad-mouthing Joe Morgan and saying, hey, man, I don't want to be part of the EME. We became Christians, etc. So one day, May 16, 1988, while he is in the crapper, taking a crap, Sleepy Huerta gets a filero, comes up to him, and he stabs him one time right through the heart. One time, right through the heart. And in his cell, in level 4 Tehachapi State Prison. I mean, it's a level the SHU program. He kills him. So what he does, Bobby, he stabs himself. And he yells out, man down, man down. When the correctional officers come in, they see him stabbed. They see this vato, he's taking a crap. He's dead. It went right through the heart, one hit. And they don't file criminal charges against him. Because why? Because he said it was self-defense and he stabbed himself. Right. But nobody was ever able to prove it. And how I know this? Through different debriefings. And I talked today, actually, I talked to Devin Hawks and he was breaking it all down. Thank you, Devin. Thank you, brother, for breaking it all down for us. He stabs himself. They basically do their investigation. They never filed charges. Well, after that, another guy became a Christian. And now we got Kilroy Roybal. And this guy was one of the original members of the EME. And he had met Nico and accepted the Lord. So now, guess what? They're going to go after him. And guess who gets the orders to stab this guy? This guy was like 6'3", he was going to be a professional baseball player. If you guys get a chance to watch the movie Kilroy, I'm telling you, this guy was a boxer, a professional, almost semi-professional, but he was an older gentleman. That's his picture right there when this happened at Tehachapi. Sleepy Huerta had already killed his roommate or his Sally, Nico. Now, a year later, he has to kill him because he became a Christian. So what he does, he waits for him to walk the yard. He comes up to him, starts sticking him because this guy was a boxer, starts boxing him, throws him down. And as he's walking away, he looks at the fellas and he says, never send a boy to do a man's work. And shortly thereafter, a couple of years later, he gets paroled. He became a great man of God, a true Christian Roy Bal. And today, he passed away a year ago. But guys, with that said, let me just, a word from our sponsor, a word that says, put away your sword, meet your death. Then Jesus said to him, put your sword back into its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. The book of Matthew. What do you guys think about the story that I just shared with you guys? Him killing these two guys because they became Christians. And then I'm going to get into right now what is happening in Centinela since Ronnie Ayala got there. But let's talk a little bit about these murders, or one murder that he definitely got away with, and this one where he stabbed another guy who became a Christian. Shoot, what do you guys think?
You're on mute.
Doug, I think you went mute, Doug. See, you might want to take off your unmute. Doug, we can't hear you. You're on mute, Doug. You're on mute.
How's that?
Yeah, got you. Yeah.
I think it's kind of a morality thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, so all these guys, I can almost guarantee that most of these guys were raised in a Catholic family. It's going to be my guess.
Yeah.
Since the vast majority of the Hispanic population in the world is of the Catholic faith. So, you know, they go on and do their business and they kind of lose their faith, and these guys find their faith back. I think there's something to be said about I don't want to call it jealousy, but maybe that's it. They know that these guys have found peace. They found peace within themselves. They're not at war with themselves any longer. They understand, they're going to be saved. They've been forgiven for the transactions, and I think that just throws people aloof, and I think that's what it comes down to. And then in their minds, they can't trust them because they're not going to carry out any orders anymore. They're not going to, and they may talk. Who knows? But I think a lot of it has to do with, they have found something that's more important to them than the family, than the mafia, and it was their faith.
Bobby,
it's cult-like. Think about this: rapist, serial murderer, tecato, everything that you would think that for us or a normal person would be a damn shit stain for regular society, but that's okay. But turn your life to God, turn your life to the Lord. He's got to go.
Yeah,
and that's just that mentality. It's like a cult. And you know what? We're going to stay with. We'll circle the wagons around all the tecatos, the drug addict, or the serial rapists, serial murderers, even the most horrific crimes you can think of. But now you got to go. That's sad. It's actually sad.
Yeah.
But that's life. It's a tough life, and it's a very hypocritical, obviously.
Yeah. But yet you hear a guy by the name of Art Blacos, Conejo, other guys, Big Dan, that gave their life to the Lord, and they were giving basically a break. Yeah, you give your life to the Lord, never come back. But that was the Joe Morgan, the Topo Peters, the old generation. But this generation didn't look at it like they did out of respect. These guys, I don't care if you're a Christian, we're going to kill you. And they did. But let me tell you what is going on now. So now he gets to Centinela about 3 weeks ago. First day he gets there, maybe on a Thursday, I'm just throwing this out. On a Friday, he goes in the yard, and the first thing he does, you got Sleepy Huerta. You got him there. That same guy that killed his Sally, the same guy that stabbed. And since then, he's been involved in numerous other murders. Like you said, Doug, he's gotten away with them.
Yeah.
But now he's the king at Centinela. You got Sleepy Huerta there. This guy comes in fresh out of death row. First time in 34 years that he's walking a yard because he's been in death row. He comes in and he says, "Hey, I'm taking over. This is my yard. This is my prison." Well, guess what? Sleepy Huerta and the rest of the guys tell him, F you. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? They say, F you. You ain't running nothing. This isn't death row. This is us. The following day, everybody's out on the yard, and all of a sudden, and you guys saw, let me show this picture again. You guys saw where Centinela State Prison is. You guys saw. It's desert. And the next day, all of a sudden you hear a boom, boom. It's a 308 sniper rifle. Boom, boom. And while everybody's in the yard, the buildings are getting shattered. Pa, pa, pa. Everybody hits the ground. I don't know if it happened like that. I'm guessing it happened like that. They lock up the yard, and all of a sudden, Ronnie says, "Hey, you know what? Who has power here?" There's no doubt at all that was a show of power. That for the first time that's ever happened in a state prison in California, level 4 state prison. Now they believe, and I can't attest to this, and I can't deny it, but people that I have talked to that work there have said they believe it was a drone with a sniper rifle because you could see it's all desert, with a sniper rifle that went in and boom, shot up the yard. Basically, it was him telling them, right now it's the yard, tomorrow it'll be you, it'll be your family. I am the king here. Since he's been there, there's probably strife now between him and Sleepy has his soldiers that have been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
Ronnie now controls San Diego. He controls all of San Diego. Bat Marquez, he's locked up. He's never going to get out. He's in Colorado, ADX, no phone calls. The only people he talked to is his mom and his lawyer. That's it. He's not going to get out. He has no phones. I guarantee you he has no phones. So Ronnie and Hector now have taken over San Diego. So all these gangs are now paying tribute to him. I'm going to show you right now how I could show that they're paying tribute to him. They're paying taxes. All these drug dealers in San Diego are now paying taxes. So now there's a feud, maybe a war going on between Gabriel Sleepy Huerta and Ronnie Ayala. As this is going on, all of a sudden we get the shots fired and everybody's like, oh my God. Well, last week there was a murder. There was a murder at Ironwood State Prison. Luis Padilla was murdered. Luis Padilla was in death row with Ronnie. And I don't know what their relationship was, but I guarantee you that he probably disrespected Ronnie, but Ronnie couldn't get him there in death row. So he waited for him to go to the main yard like everybody else. Ronnie never forgot that. So guess what he does? He sends 3 torpedoes, 3 youngsters, Samuel Ricardes, 28 years old, Jonathan Orduna, 23-year-old, and Juan Madrigal, that's his picture right there, 26 years old, to go in and stab Padilla, who had done time with Ronnie in death row. You know, so it just shows you, I mean, these guys probably got their orders in the county jail, the power that Ronnie and Hector Ayala have, the power that they have. I mean, and now they're not even in death row anymore. Now they're walking the yard. They're walking the yard. They're taking over the yard. These guys, I am telling you, it's unbelievable. And people talk about, and on our next episode, Bobby, I know you're going to talk a lot more to Devin, and we're going to get more information about the commission. But this is what I was told informally, and I could be wrong, but we will find out on the 24th, that there is a commission that is forming as we speak. Like I said, I could be wrong, but there, as we speak, it's forming. The federal prison system, EME, has a commission. And next time we come up, we'll show the pictures, who's on the commission. But the commission here, I believe, is Ronnie Ayala, now that he's out of death row, Alfred Sandoval, known as Chato, hardcore Mexican Mafia member who was in death row with Ronnie and was involved in a double murder there in death, a single murder there in death row. We'll talk about it with Chacon is here from Arizona Maravilla, and once again Sleepy Huerta. And there's one more, I didn't get that name, that are part of the commission. So now the commission is probably infighting, but this guy Ayala is just, I mean, like I said, and if he had a phone in death row, which it's almost impossible to get, what does he have and how much more power does he have right now where he's at? Your thoughts, guys, and we're going to end the show right now. Your thoughts. I mean,
he's, you know, you figure death row is probably the most secure area you can have within the institutions. And now he's in with General Pop. So he's got access to people. He's got more access. I mean, I don't know how they're going to do that. Are they going to allow him to have visitors now too?
You know what? He's in general population. I'm sure that he's going to have what in death row. He didn't. Yeah, he had a cell phone, but I'm sure now he has. I mean, he's an inmate like everybody else.
So his means of communication with the outside world has just grown exponentially because he's got access to all that stuff. And I don't know what it's going to do with the organization. I don't know if it's going to split. I don't know what's going to happen. Who's going to be aligned with whom, what's going to happen. Where's Sleepy from? Is he from the LA area?
Oh yeah, he's from Wilmington. He's from Wilmington, and you know what? He is powerful individual.
So is that going to cause a rift between, San Diego versus LA?
Oh, maybe.
Different things. I mean, I don't know. And that's going to be horrible for the guys that have to work in the institutions. Because now if there's a split, that's going to be a lot of violence. A lot of violence.
And you know what, Chris? I agree with you. It's damn scary for all our police officers, our detectives that are working gangs. They need to be aware that Ronnie and Hector are running San Diego. And you know what? It is scary because these guys have no regards to life. They will kill a cop. They have no respect for cops. Bobby, your thoughts?
Yeah, prison politics. It's very dynamic, constantly changing. And, the biggest, baddest, or the person with the most influence and backing, if it's not a peaceful transition, then it's going to be a war. So, just got to pray for the officers that are still, the correction personnel still working in the system, that are still inside the walls, and for the officers out on the street. It's scary stuff. We saw the same thing happen here in Arizona several times, where each generation has a split off. And so we'll see what happens. Prayers to those that are still working, like I said, behind the walls and out on the street.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Those officers that are working right now, he's in C-Quad. That's where they have him at right now. And C-Quad's been divided. On Sunday, they had 2 Sureños stabbed. So the war's already on. You know what I mean? Sleepy Huerta went to court. So now Ronnie's in there facilitating his moves. So yes, there is. And I agree with you, Ceci. Right now, I believe that the Inland Empire, where you're at, Riverside, that whole area, it's up for grabs. And Ronnie and Hector are going to fight for that. They got San Diego. Now they're going to go for that. Orange County, they're going to try to control. They're going to try to take over. But like I said, it's going to be very interesting. Police officers, correctional officers, watch your back. Don't trust these guys. And guys, we're going to end the show because I know we've gone over the hour. But guys, I just want to say that Johnny Chingas on Police and Fire Publishing this Friday, he just did a great episode, like you said, Doug, on Ronnie Ayala. One of the best episodes I've ever seen. He's doing one on Friday on Hector, his brother. Now, Hector, his brother, right now is in Salinas Valley. And they're calling Salinas Valley and Centinela State Prison the White Houses, because that's where all the main shot callers and everybody are at. Not San Quentin anymore, Pelican Bay, Tehachapi, Salinas, and Centinela.
So Salinas, is that split between the Norteños and the Sureños?
Yes, and they have formed an alliance. So they are no longer in the state at war, but in the feds they are. But in the state, they have formed an alliance.
Okay.
And people have said, oh, my God, all the Chicanos are getting... No, these aren't Chicanos. These are criminals.
Yeah.
When we say they're getting together, is to form a bigger criminal enterprise of drug dealing, of murder, of power. I mean, these are criminals when we talk about them getting together. But guys, I know, man, today was a great episode. Next week, we have Victor Avila coming back again. It's going to be a great episode. Bobby, tell us real quick about Victor Avila. I know we had him but tell us about him, what he's going to talk about next week.
Well, Victor's a retired ICE agent that he and his partner were working. Victor was working sexual exploitation, child trafficking cases out of Mexico. And him and his partner were ambushed in San Luis Potosí by what turned out to be members of Los Zetas. And they were ambushed, and Victor was shot 3 times, and his partner, Jaime Zapata, was murdered. And he's going to come back, because last time we had him, we didn't have much time to really talk about the aftermath of what happened, things that happened, reference that horrible incident. So he's going to be talking about some of the follow-up investigations that occurred and some of the stonewalling that was done by our own government, and how he was just thrown under the bus, and his career was pretty much over. He didn't realize it at the time, but his career was over after he recovered. And but it should be a good episode. Looking forward.
Outstanding.
Eminem, you asked the question, how do we get this information? We have we speak to a lot of correctional officers at these state prisons that we're talking about. We have a lot of former great investigators like Devin Hawks. I mean, this guy's a legend with the Department of Corrections, was a legend, continues to be a legend, will forever be a legend. And we have still informants or former sources of information that were in that life that we speak to on a weekly or maybe daily basis. So that's where we get the information. And are we 100% right? We may not be, but you know what? We're going to tell you what we believe is going on. It's up to you to believe it. And like you said, VJ Juarez, it's up to you to make a difference when you go to the voting, when it's time for you to vote. It's you that's going to make a difference. Guys, with that said, next week, and I'm going to end the show with next Tuesday, we have part 2 of Jay Margarito Flores. Last night episode, Doug, I don't know if you got a chance to see it.
Yes.
He went in depth on Chapo Guzman. Next week, he's going to be talking about El Tigrillo, which is Javier Arellano. He did time with him in prison. He's going to be talking about when he met him, what he ate, what they talked about, the murders, the kidnappings. Next week episode is going to be outstanding.
And that was on the Gray Line?
Not the Gray Line, yes. Okay. And then that's on Tuesday. And then Wednesday, we have Victor Avila, part 2. Both of them are going to be part 2. It's going to be great. I can't wait. Guys, have a happy 4th of July. Any last words, Big Doug?
Hey, just, hey, everybody break out the pocket Constitution and read what it says, so you understand what it is. It's not, it doesn't tell you what you're allowed to do. It tells the government what they're not supposed to do to you.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Bobby, last words, brother?
Nothing. Just everybody be careful out there and stay cool. It's we're in the middle of summer out here, 114, 115, and I think I'm still sunburned from Sunday.
And I forgot to wear a hat. I got my pelona. I'm definitely sunburned. Hey, brother, love you guys. We'll see you guys next week. Happy 4th of July to you and your family. Blessings to you all. God bless you guys.
Happy 4th, everybody.
A ser bien cabrón, poco a poco fue creciendo este chavalón. Mi madre con su respeto, ella me educó. Los consejos de mi padre siempre llevo yo. Él fue quien me ha enseñado a ser verdadero. Y dijo, pórtate mal con quien son culero. Y desde ese momento mi vida cambió. Y ahora véanme bien loco y bien tumbado. Vacas verdes es en lo que yo siempre pienso, pues pa' obtenerla solo existe el esfuerzo. Muchos golpes de la vida me han tocado, a partir de ahí ya no volví a ser yo. Y puro, Justin Morales viejo, y vámonos para arriba, somos Chacon Music. Mi hermano que en paz descanse siempre fue un chingón. Yo lo llevo en la mente y en el corazón. Carnal Brandon tatuado hasta el cuello. Gracias por todo, carnal, es un abrazo. Puro Morales en la sangre llevo yo. Orgulloso de estar en la familia que estoy. Pa' mi clica un saludo, siempre me verán. Diferente madre, pero aquí yo soy carnal. Los reales yo los cuento con los dedos de mis manos. Algunos son solo amigos y otros como hermanos. ¿Dónde están los que decían que nada lograría? Pues empieza desde cero para adelante todos los días.